Well, hello there, and welcome to day 93 of A Film a Day with me, Jordan Woodley. Well, after a couple of heavy days doing some intensive live streaming with some fairly long videos, I thought I would do something a little lighter, a little more straightforward, and a little gentler than the art house fare of, oh gosh, what was it called again? Wavelength, or the high octane blockbuster of Godzilla versus Kong. So something a bit gentler, a bit nicer, with the Englishman who went up a hill and down a mountain. A 1995 British film by Christopher Munger. And this is very nice. It is the definition of a nice film to watch. And that might sound like I'm damning with faint praise, but it's genuinely, sincerely meant that it's the kind of film that you can rest in and watch and really connect to local landscape and sweet characters and not be overly challenged by. But there is still some drama, but it's done in a way that isn't trying to punish you as a viewer. Many even light-hearted dramas that lean more into comedy still have this meanness and this critical or satirical edge that's trying to make you aware of something. I mean, this is very much in the mould of something like Full Monty or Brassed Off, and to its credit and damning it, I suppose, is the fact that it doesn't have the commentary of those films. This really has a real Richard Curtis vibe to it. I mean, beyond the fact that Hugh Grant's in it, it has that sweet, good-humoured, sort of soft, like I say, British filmmaking style, and in both the scripting and the cinematography. This is very much about presenting a landscape as character, and this is very much as someone myself, drawing from my own experience as an Englishman who's lived in Wales for coming up to a decade off and on. That relationship between an Englishman coming in to very rural Wales, or not so rural but fairly rural South Wales, and the culture clash and the fish out of water relationship really gives you that something familiar, but also that streak of conflict in the comedy. I won't say that it's quite as good as a Richard Curtis. It doesn't have the sharp sense of humour that he has, but stylistically there is definitely the structure of it. Like, I could see a Richard Curtis looking at a script like this, and with a few tweaks this would be much more within his oeuvre. I mean, frankly, as well as mentioning the films like Brassed Off, Pride, or Full Monty, it has that real sense of defining British period. It reminds me a little bit of drawing to a very recent film, The Dig, which of course I've covered in this series, where it's creating a sense of history, of landscape, and of quintessential British characters in a way that we can identify, but also might find, we want to see documented, because they might not exist in the same way as we'd recognise them in the increasingly faster, more modern pace of life. And there is something slower, something a bit more considered, and I think the parallels between this and The Dig are quite nice. Additionally, there is almost something quite Wes Anderson about it as well. Of course, it opens in a very similar style to a Grand Budapest Hotel, where it's a narrator telling the audience a story which he heard from his grandfather and going back to the grandfather as a young man. So taking us from the narrator is talking to us in the present day of 1995, presumably, and through this series of narrators, we end up, or series of perspectives, we end up in 1917 Wales. And it is based on, you know, like I say, the rural landscape. It's supposed to be, have this authenticity to it and this real connection to Welsh history and Welsh culture. I mean, the hill or mountain that the central conceit is based on is a real place, and this conflict about whether it's a hill or a mountain was a real conflict. Well, was and continues to be a real conflict. But that's the nice thing about the stakes, the idea that, you know, if there is a satire and a social commentary to it, the idea of, you know, these two British men, played by Hugh Grant and Ian McNeice, coming into this town, you know, Englishmen coming into Wales and determining its culture and almost redefining its culture according to English standards and English principles, and consequently the Welsh people, the local people, trying to, you know, fighting back against that and digging deep, you know, to reclaim their identity against these English standards and ideas. And you know, it's that the Welsh side of it's really well led by Colm Meaney, who plays, well, Colm Meaney, who plays the local pub owner, called, oh, what was it, something the Goat, Morgan the Goat. But then also Kenneth Griffith, who plays the Reverend Jones, and these two have a great back and forth. There's within themselves, there's a conflict between them, the pious priest versus the rough around the edges landlord or pub owner, and you know, and the idea that these two have to get together to bring the community against these English interlopers with their ideals. And you know, I as I say, Englishman who lives in Wales, you know, I live in urban modern Wales, so it's not exactly like I personally live in like a rural area and have this kind of conflict, but I recognise the characters and the archetypes and the structure, and you know, it even references the fact that there's a character who comes from Cardiff to this town, and she is seen as this outsider, or you know, she comes from some big city, and again there is that there is something quite recognisable in the culture of that. But yeah, it's a sweet film. As I say, it's very low stakes and very watchable with really nice characters. It's not gonna blow the doors off of sort of British filmmaking. As I say, there are identifiable elements to films of the period, and it doesn't achieve the level of those films or the historical import, but it definitely deserves its place. And as I say, you know, a film about a local Welsh town, it's nice to see. And again, as someone who's interested and who's invested in filmmaking by and about Wales, I recognise its you know, its relevance to filmmaking now, here and now. Anyway, thank you for joining me. If you like this video, please click like, subscribe to the channel, and please go through my back catalogue. If you could also please share the video and follow me on Twitter at Jordan_Woodley, where I also post trailers, videos, content videos, and of course I share these on the Twitter as well. Thank you for joining me. Take care.